Okay, so this is User Drink, and my update for this week. You can see I don't have too much going on in the Unreal scene at the moment, but let's start kind of where I started this week. So I modeled off this car. I followed a tutorial on how to model vehicles for use in Unreal Engine using their vehicle actor components, whatever. And basically what you need is you need to have a chassis. Let's see, where am I? Oh, you need to have a chassis, you need to have the wheels. I guess the wheels don't need to be as separate models, but I've made them such so that I could copy them here. And then you need to have at least 4 bones. One bone is named root. Well, you don't. The names don't matter. They come in later. And then you've got a bone for each of the wheels, and then you can see that the bones are centered on the wheel locations. Initially, I had, so you may notice that I've got some, if I go into wireframe here, you may notice that I made some little fenders here, and the wheels are clipping through those. The reason is because I had originally had the wheels underneath the vehicle, and it was positioned much higher, but it was rolling inside Unreal, and I decided a lower form would be a lot easier than spending hours and hours tweaking things. So I went with that. Anyway, moving on, let's see, there's export options. There's some very specific export options that you want for Unreal. I have those all saved as a UE4 preset now, because the defaults are nothing at all like what you want for UE4. So I did that. One weird thing that I'm not entirely sure why you have to do this is that the bones end up in this sort of like they're pointing to the left out the world, and I think that has to do with the XYZ coordinates. So in Unreal, Z is up, which it is here in Blender as well. And I think I'm not sure why they end up having to be pointing out that direction, but according to the tutorial, that's the way they need to be facing, and I didn't feel like screwing around with it. Just to experiment and figure out why. So I brought that into here in Unreal Engine, and you can see I can turn around and I can drive, and there's like an e-brake that I can flip and keep going. And so the way that all works is, let's see, going back to content, I've got a buggy thing, and then so it surprises me how many assets you have to kind of put together at first to get something to work here. So it started, the tutorial I found started me off at just making a basic tire, and let me get this from the other monitor. The basic tire is literally just friction scale, and you can have elements of friction scales, which I'm not sure what those are, but I assume it's some sort of progression of friction changing at different speeds or something like that. So defaults to 1, I set it to 1.5 because I wanted a little less slippage. And then you go to the wheel basic front and wheel basic rear. And you can have a completely random set of different wheels if you want to using their thing, which is kind of cool, but I'm not playing with that quite so much at the moment. But in here you set things like the radius of the wheels, which I got from Blender. You can see this is 1 meter tall or 100 centimeters, so the radius would be 50 centimeters. So that's where I've got that. The width is 40. I think I just eyeballed that. The mass was originally 20, and I set it up to 60 because I think it's expecting smaller tires, and I wanted my tires to be a little bit more grippy. I don't know if that's going to affect very much. None of these settings seem to affect too much. Everything seems to be pretty subtle. So I'm not really worrying too much about that. Affected by handbrake, you can set so the front wheels right now aren't affected by the handbrake, but the rear wheels are. And then steer angle, I've got these set to 70. And then for the rear wheels, the steer angle is set to 0, which may not matter as much anymore because of, let's see, what I'm about to show you here, this vehicle movement component. So you set up all of the wheels. You can have an arbitrary number of wheels in your vehicle, which I think is pretty dope. And so these ones, it's disable steering is checked on these back 2 wheels. So I'm not sure if the steering angle matters now that there's this thing. So the tutorials, are older, and this version has new features in it, obviously. But you've got wheels 0 and 1 are the front left and front right. This FL and FR are taken from the bones here, FL and FR that I set up there, and then back BL and BR for the back 2 wheels. And they're using the CPG basic wheel rear components that I've created for those as well. Additionally, I've set up a spring arm to follow the vehicle around. It took me a little while to realize these lag values are actually, the lower the lag value, the more it lags behind. So that's a little bit, it says here right in the tooltips, and I should have just read that, I guess, but I didn't read it, and there you have it. So, so that's where that is. So like if I set this lag to like 1 for the rotation lag, and then come back in here and hit play and then start rotating, then you'll see the vehicle turns a lot before the camera starts catching up, which might be a fun way to go. Actually, I kind of like this 1 lag here. And then, because I'm not making a strict racing game. Mine's going to be a little bit more of a kind of Mad Max sort of setup, with where driving is kind of the main component. So yeah, maybe I'll put that back up to 2, just a hair, and then I want to lower this lag speed there, so it'll so this is the distance lag, so that this should now, when I go, the car will accelerate a little bit, and then when I stop, so the car kind of moves back and forth a little bit. I may even lower that a little more to get a little more dramatic. So I got that working. That took me a couple days. A couple evenings. I don't have too much time each day. And then the last thing I've done is I've created this dynamic terrain actor in C++, which is fairly simple right now. Most of this is copy-pasted from a simple example. Ultimately, what I want is I want to have a kind of procedurally generated infinite terrain that you can keep driving back and forth. As you can see over here, I've got, I can drive all the way over here. I made a very, very large platform, but it is a platform nonetheless, and you can drive off of it. And that's no good. So what I want to try and do, and we'll see if it works out, is I want to try and make an infinite terrain. And initially I'm going to just set kind of like a noise thing, but basically the dynamic terrain actor uses this procedural mesh component, and the procedural mesh component has submeshes that I can use. So what I'm planning on doing is having a customizable U property where you can say how many sections is it, how many vertices does each section have, and how large is each section. And so then as you go forward, as you enter into a new section, it kind of takes the row behind you and regenerates them in front of you, sort of the way Minecraft deals with chunks, so that no matter where you go, you've got this section. And then my plan is to go take these where it's, right now it's generating a box that I can show you in a second. You've seen the box that I'm going on, but I'll show you. Right now it's just generating this box, but the plan is to have it generate a flat surface and then use just sort of a two-dimensional fixed noise function in order to add some terrain variation for now. And we'll see how that goes. So getting back to the demo, last thing is you see this box right here is the, that's the procedurally generated mesh. And it collides with, it does physics collisions, so you can't drive through it. And let's see if I can get it to do one really fun thing that I discovered. If I can get it to do it. If you can kind of get the wheels stuck. There we go. Make the physics go crazy. All right, and that's it. That's what I got so far. So hopefully I'll be back next week with some more interesting updates than this. And I look forward to seeing how your work progresses. Thanks. Take care.